again. Now, on September 2nd, the ROS, or Registrar of Societies, approved 20 new political parties right here in Malaysia. There were 11 in Sabah, 5 in Sarawak, and 4 in the Peninsula. At a glance, this may not seem quite a significant event, but let's not underestimate it, because it may create ripples in the Malaysian political scene, especially if we knew who the office bearers were. And still remaining a mystery, this has been questioned by political analyst KHOO PENG, who is in the studio with us. Welcome.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Great, thanks for joining us. And also Ernie Chen is our resident guest. You spoke about this recently and made comments on the office bearers, which still remain a mystery. Why is that so?
Well, I think is that first, some of these political parties may not be set up by politicians. Politicians who understand the game, politicians who are, of course, very active in the political scene. But they could be set up by people with interest, hidden interest, perhaps in setting up these political parties.
Right.
The real intention is not very clear, but of course, the real intention is to pursue a relevant political struggle, then of course you will not have a situation that suddenly political parties brought out of nowhere. You will be able to see some kind of movement, some kind
Right.
of
So who are the political leaders in these new parties over here?
I don't know, honestly, Ernie, because there are, if let's say people like Jeffrey Kittingan were to set up his political party like Star, that is expected because he was involved,
Sure.
from on either side.
So you're saying the RS has not released the names of these new parties that's been announced? Is that the right, or can anyone just find out and check out and to request for the release of the names?
By I think technically, ROS must have the pro tem committee names before a political party is actually being approved.
Correct.
So ROS has the list of the names, but it is not the duty of ROS to announce these names. I think their duty is to see whether the association of the political party meets the requirement for it to be deemed legal. It just stops at that.
Yeah, shouldn't be anyone be allowed to find out a little bit more in order for us to want to join that party if I'm an interested party member to that party?
Yeah, to know their struggles and etc. Yeah.
That is the logical sense. I think political parties set up, I did mention in the same article that they would need support of members, right? They would need to create branches, they would need to build the network, they would need to have a very strong grassroots to make a difference.
Sure.
So if they do not stand up and make themselves visible to the public, then how do they expect people to be able to join the political parties?
So are you saying that these parties were set up just to wait for the very last minute in order to be aligned with either Barisan Nasional or to be aligned with Pakatan, just to play the game of politics?
Possible, but one of them, the PPDS, I think the party runs the PPDS Baru, have already set up and they've already announced the intention. But the good thing about it is that we know it was set up by one of the party leaders. So political parties set up may have that intention. But the second possibility, which I've spoken to Anne, is that perhaps there could be a strategy within certain coalitions to set up new political parties, hoping that new political parties will then take root to replace some of the defunct old parties which I've seen to have lost power.
Would that be more in Barisan or in the opposition?
It will more be on the Barisan side.
On the Barisan side, yeah.
But based on the past history, have you come across any parties set up recently? I mean, Zahid Ibrahim started Kita in that manner, but it really took no movement in many ways. It was just died off and he just kind of gave up. And he was a pretty well recognized, well known and rich politician to be able to sustain and support that. I don't see any of these parties going anywhere, even if it's aligned to whether it's the Pakatan or even the Barisan Nasional. So does it really matter?
So why bother setting up in the first place?
The thing is no. That's why I say that political parties like these, we have reasonable doubt to say that it might not be started by politicians. If you are a politician, if you were to set up a certain political party, you know that it doesn't happen overnight. The political base has to be built for a number of years. People will have to believe on the things that you struggle for. There has got to be a buy-in on your ideologies. Not easy. And if a politician have gone through the grinding process of building up their own profile, if they were to come up because of certain things that happen within their incumbent political party, then the possibility of success is there. try to imagine, if there is a conflict within the conservatives and the liberals in the past, for someone in the mold of Khalid Samad will come out and set up his own political party, and says that he represents the liberal and progressive part of an Islamic movement. I think they would have some tractions. If something were to happen within MCA, for example.
I don't think so as far as MCA is concerned. Personally, I feel MCA is done.
Yeah. No, just for the sake of a sort of conversation, and there's two factions. One believes that MCA should go multiracial. There has been talk within the party, but one says that being Chinese centric is still relevant. So what if the part which says that no, we are not going to be able to to go that way. Hence, I'm taking my supporters and myself out to form a Malaysian Citizens Association.
Do you really believe that even within MCA itself, or even MIC, if they were to form a fraction, it would survive on its own? I feel it will weaken even further the party itself.
But then again, it could be, it could be better.
May not necessarily be. Today, it doesn't define in like the older definition that political parties must get national support, which means that they must perform well in all the 13 states and federal territories and so on. It's not about that. I think there is an opening. As the two coalitions gets a little bit closer in their political competition. As the margin becomes narrower, there's always ground for political parties who can actually get niche support.
Okay. So coming back to this. 20 new political parties is not just overnight that the ROS will approve something like that, I am sure. So what's the game here?
Well, the game is that for me, I think on one side, I look at it positive, because, standing on it, there has to be positive and negative. Positive means that, well, for so many years, ROS has suddenly liberalized, making it easier for people wanting to form association and political parties to be able to form. So, which actually is very consistent with the whole entire process of democracy.
So you mean to tell me that people like us can even form our own political parties?
Why not? Go to ROS, check out the requirements. If you meet the requirements.
Do we need to be aligned to a certain party or coalition or even the government?
If they adhere to the spirit of the formation of a political party, then it shouldn't be. I don't think that is part of the requirement that a political setup has to be aligned to any of the coalitions.
So it could be aligned to PKR or
it could be. It could be. It could be. It's a good thing. Now, I mean, on one side, it's a good thing, but on the other side, if then it were to be set out selectively, meaning that political parties that are aligned, like you say, aligned to certain factions will get easy, speedy approval, but political factions were seen not to align to these people, or may not have the ideology that is mainstream or mainstream acceptable, like socialist leaning, for example, may not get an approval. Then I think it is going to actually put a lot of pressure on the system.
Sure. You being a political analyst yourself and knowing both sides of the coalition so well, do you see that Pakatan will take over the government for this next coming election?
It depends. I think Pakatan Rakyat, if you look at the construct of the three political parties and what they have achieved in the last elections, they have actually come to a stage based on the current structure and based on their current campaign strategy. They have almost come to the maximum. Until and unless Pakatan can do something different, and thus that something different is not rocket science. It's not so difficult for.
I mean, there's nowhere to go.
It's really, I mean, for them is we have to have a rural strategy, which means that the two very urban-based parties like PKR and DAP, that by construct appeals to a wider Malaysian base.
But based on the Pakatan leaders, they believe that based on demographics, based on numbers, 1 million old voters will be out of the picture in the next general election. 3 million new voters in the urban will be coming in. So based on numbers itself, they're very confident that it's not going to be depending. It's going to be certain for sure that they will take over this next government.
It's a nice mathematical formulation to have, right? For example, but when you have first past a post system with an increase, a tremendous increase in urbanization, Malaysia is at a rate of 71%. If you were to add in 3 million more young voters, predominantly in the urban areas, it would only mean one thing. You will have larger popular votes, number one. Number two, you will have bigger majorities in the constituencies that you win. But it will not win you an additional number of seats. The election system doesn't work in a way that suddenly you erase out the rural constituencies. Because there are not that many voters there.
Which happened in the past elections, don't you think? Yeah.
You know, you can't do that because by construct, if it's a first past the post system, it will still be largely constituency based.
So as far as you're concerned, if you say it's depend, is it a higher chance for the Barisan Nasional to maintain its government or a higher chance for the opposition to take over government?
Or the third force.
If based on current strategy, if Pakatan continues with what it is doing, and if Barisan were to then, going by the kind of statement they made in the first 2 to 3 weeks of the G to T,
racial
I think they will be,
statements.
if they were to focus on their supporter base, which is predominantly Sabah Sarawak and also the
Rural
Malay
areas?
rural community, I think they will be able to sustain the government. It will be very difficult to overturn the number of seats.
So it's still very much of Sabah and Sarawak being the fixed deposits for the Barisan Nasional, and pretty much don't have to worry so much about Semenanjung. So whatever promises is made to Semenanjung Malaysian voters, forget about that.
Is that also why
Semenanjung, whatever it is, there are still core number of seats. You must remember that in the last election, Barisan Nasional still won popular votes in 9 states. Popular votes, they have won in 9 states. And 2 of it, of course, is Sabah and Sarawak. But 7 are in the Semenanjung. So a core number of seats will still come from Semenanjung. But they will be focusing on the belt, which may not be the belt that we all know, because I'm from Penang. Of course, it's a developed city. If you look at the Klang Valley, again, it's a very developed area. But they'll be focusing on areas, for example, like Terengganu, which there is a very keen competition. You'll be focusing on areas like Pahang, Malacca,
and obviously Barisan
Kedah,
is
and subsequently in all these states, I think Kelantan will perhaps give them a bit of net effect. Judging from the last election, they won additional seats, 7 seats from there.
There will be a run for the money.
There will be a run for the money.
money.
And PAST is also going through their own transformation.
But obviously Barisan is quite confident as well. I mean, after all that has happened, and the mud, I would say, is still out there. They have imposed an increase in petrol prices, which, of course, mass population is not agreeable to. But of course, they are confident of winning the votes. Even
because it's still very early. The strategy is always, after election, give them 6 months to tone down, increase whatever you want to increase.
And then you have Brim.
Then you have Brim coming back right before the elections, and everyone forgets about everything. So the government is always planning, positioning in such a way. So do you see that? What is one thing that the opposition really will need to do to take over government?
To be sure.
I think what they need to do really is to govern the states that are already in their control well. I think for the last 5 years, for whatever state, you don't see that much difference between the states governed by Pakatan and
Are you talking across the board or just certain states?
By Barisan.
But Penang has done pretty well.
No major transformation. Perhaps Penang will be able to tell you that, look, we have put all the local councils in black. Yeah, fine, they're in black. So what is that killer apps? We got. What is that new policy that really drive Penang's ahead of other states?